Okay, here is the English translation of Block 1 of 6, keeping it faithful to the original content, without summarizing, rewriting, or adding anything. The format and punctuation are preserved. The silence that filled the dining room after he spoke those words was more deafening than any scream. My son, my Gabriel, the boy I carried in my womb for 9 months and in my arms for endless years, was standing there before me, with cold eyes, arms crossed, and he had just said that I was a burden in his life. An encumbrance, a nuisance that he had to carry because society expected it of him. I felt my legs wobble, my stomach churn, and for a moment all the air seemed to be sucked out of that large modern room, with its designer furniture and impeccable decor. My daughter-in-law, Mariana, was sitting beside me, with a half-frozen smile on her lips, her eyes gleaming with something between satisfaction and discomfort. She said nothing, just watched, like someone watching a soap opera scene in which they don't need to interfere. And I, with my 63 years, my hands calloused from so much work, my gray hair tied in a simple bun, stood there in the middle of that room that didn't seem like mine, feeling the ground crumble beneath my feet. Exhausted, with my hands raw, but always with a smile for my son, always with time to help him with his homework, to hear about his day at school, to hug him and tell him that I loved him more than anything in the world. When Gabriel got a partial scholarship to study at a private school, I worked even harder to pay the other half. He needed expensive school supplies, an impeccable uniform, brand-name sneakers so he wouldn't feel inferior to his wealthier classmates. And I provided everything, even if it meant eating only rice and egg for weeks, even if it meant wearing the same 3 outfits for years in a row. My life was Gabriel. Every decision I made was thinking about him, his future, his happiness. I gave up a possible romantic restart when a good man showed interest in me because I didn't want anything to take my focus away from raising my son. I declined promotions that would require me to travel because I couldn't be away from him. My entire existence revolved around ensuring that he had the best life possible, and Gabriel grew up bright. He got into a federal university, studied business administration, and stood out among his peers. I was so proud, so happy to see that all my sacrifices had paid off. He got an internship at a large company, then was hired, and his career took off. That's when he met Mariana. She came from an upper-middle-class family, had studied at private schools her whole life, spoke English fluently, and had that air of superiority disguised as friendliness. From the beginning, I noticed the way she assessed me, how she looked at my simple clothes, my less elaborate language, my hands marked by manual labor. But Gabriel was in love, and I swallowed my discomfort because I wanted him to be happy. The wedding was elegant, expensive, and I helped with what I could, although I realized that Mariana tried to keep me away from most of the decisions. Her family was large, noisy, full of opinions about everything. I was just the groom's single mother, the woman who had raised her son alone in humble conditions. They were polite, but I felt the distance, the veiled judgment, and Gabriel, my Gabriel, began to change. He began to adopt the manners of her family, to speak differently, to subtly be ashamed of our origins, but I forgave him. I forgave him because I thought it was natural, that he was just adapting to the new world he had conquered. I continued to live alone in my small apartment, working at a cleaning company, living modestly. Gabriel visited me occasionally, always running, always in a hurry. Mariana rarely came along. When they found out they were expecting a baby, I was euphoric. I would be a grandmother. I offered all possible help, bought gifts I could barely afford, and made myself available to take care of the baby when it was born. But Mariana hired a professional nanny, someone with experience, she said with her polite and cutting smile. When Julia was born, my granddaughter, my heart overflowed with love. But my visits were controlled, timed, always under Mariana's supervision. Gabriel didn't seem to notice my discomfort, or chose not to notice. It was when Julia was 2 years old that they approached me with a proposal. They wanted to buy a bigger house, in a better neighborhood, but they were having difficulty with the down payment. Gabriel, with that smile I had known since childhood, asked me for help. If I sold my apartment and moved in with them, the money from the sale would cover the missing down payment. I would have a comfortable room, I could be close to my granddaughter, I would be part of the family. "You don't have to live alone anymore, Mom," he said, holding my hands. "It's time for you to rest, to enjoy life. We'll take care of you." And I, who never knew how to deny anything to my son, who dreamed of being closer to him and my granddaughter, accepted. If you are following this story and want to continue receiving reports like this of overcoming and real-life lessons, consider subscribing to the channel so you don't miss the next content. I sold my apartment, that little corner that was my refuge, my safe haven, and handed the money over to Gabriel. I moved into the new house, believing that we would finally have that family life I always wanted. The first few days were good. I helped with the organization of the house, cooked Gabriel's favorite meals, played with Julia, but little by little, things started to change. Mariana made comments about the way I arranged things, about my recipes being too simple for their standards, about me not understanding the modern routine of raising children. Gabriel agreed with her, always took her side. I found myself walking on tiptoe in a house that my money had helped to buy, afraid to bother, to occupy. Culturally adapted segment, exhausted, with my hands raw, but always with a smile for my son, always making time to help him with his homework, hear about his day at school, hug him, and tell him I loved him more than anything. When Gabe got a partial scholarship to study at Riverdale Academy, I worked even harder to pay the rest. He needed expensive school supplies, a perfect uniform, name-brand sneakers so he wouldn't feel out of place with the other kids. And I made sure he had it all, even if it meant eating ramen noodles for weeks, even if it meant wearing the same 3 outfits for years. My life was Gabe. Every choice I made was about him, his future, his happiness. I put a stop to dating when a good man showed interest, because I didn't want anything distracting me from raising my son. I turned down promotions that meant travel, because I couldn't be away from him. My whole life was about making sure he had the best possible start, and Gabe did great. He got into State University, studied business, and shone among his classmates. I was so proud, so happy to see all the sacrifices had paid off. He got an internship at a big company, then a full-time job, and his career took off. That's when he met Tiffany. She came from an upper-middle-class family, had been to private schools her whole life, was fluent in French, and had this air of superiority disguised as charm. Right away, I felt her sizing me up, the way she looked at my simple clothes, my less-than-perfect English, my hands roughened by work. But Gabe was smitten, and I swallowed my feelings because I wanted him to be happy. The wedding was fancy, expensive, and I helped where I could, even though Tiffany seemed to keep me out of most of the planning. Her family was big, loud, with opinions about everything. I was just the groom's single mom, the woman who'd raised him alone on a shoestring. They were polite, but I felt the distance, the subtle judging. And Gabe, my Gabe, started to change. He started picking up her family's mannerisms, talking differently, almost embarrassed by where we came from. But I let it slide. I thought it was natural, that he was just fitting into the new world he'd made for himself. I kept living in my little apartment, working as a housekeeper, getting by. Gabe would visit now and then, always rushed, always busy. Tiffany hardly ever came. When they told me they were expecting, I was over the moon. I was going to be a grandma. I offered all the help I could, bought gifts I could barely afford, offered to babysit when the baby arrived. But Tiffany hired a professional nanny, someone with experience, she said with her polite, cutting smile. When Lily was born, my granddaughter, my heart burst with love, but my visits were managed, scheduled, always under Tiffany's watch. Gabe didn't seem to see my discomfort, or maybe he chose to ignore it. It was when Lily was 2 that they came to me with an idea. They wanted a bigger house, in a better neighborhood, but they were struggling with the down payment. Gabe, with that smile I'd known since he was a kid, asked me for help. If I sold my apartment and moved in with them, the money would cover the down payment. I'd have a comfortable room, be close to my granddaughter, be part of the family. "You don't have to live alone anymore, Mom," he said, holding my hands. "It's time to relax, enjoy life, let us take care of you." And I, who could never say no to my son, who dreamed of being closer to him and my granddaughter, agreed. If you're enjoying this story and want to hear more tales of resilience and real-life lessons, please subscribe to the channel so you don't miss future content. I sold my apartment, that little corner of the world that was my safe place, my refuge, and gave the money to Gabe. I moved into the new house, hoping we'd finally have the family life I'd always wanted. The first few days were good. I helped organize, cooked Gabe's favorite meals, played with Lily. But slowly, things started to change. Tiffany made comments about how I arranged things, about my recipes being too simple, about me not understanding modern parenting. Gabe agreed with her, always took her side. I felt like I was walking on eggshells in a house my money had helped buy, afraid of being a bother, of taking up space, too much space, breathing too loud. And then came that night, that brutal declaration that called me a burden. Those words that broke the last thread holding me to the illusion that my son still cared about me. In the days following the confrontation, Gabriel avoided me. Mariana was all smiles and polite coldness, and I started doing something I had never done before, investigating. I looked for documents, reviewed papers, opened drawers I probably shouldn't have opened, and that's how I discovered the truth that would change everything. The house wasn't just in Gabriel and Mariana's names. My name was there too, in the purchase documents. When I provided the down payment money, Gabriel had included me as a co-owner, probably for tax reasons or on the advice of the lawyer. My name was there, in black and white, giving me legal rights over that property. More than that, I found bank statements forgotten in a drawer of the office Gabriel used. Statements that showed that for the last 6 months, since I had moved in, the house bills had been paid with constant delays, that there were credit card debts I didn't know about, that their financial situation wasn't as solid as the facade they maintained suggested, and then, digging deeper, I found printed messages between Mariana and a friend, messages where she explicitly said that she had convinced Gabriel to bring the old lady to live with them because they needed her money, but now that they had the house, it was time to get rid of the dead weight, that she couldn't stand having a retired maid living under the same roof, embarrassing her in front of her friends. The words were cruel, calculated, and revealed a manipulation that had been going on for much longer than I imagined. Mariana had orchestrated everything. She had used me, and worse, had turned my son into someone capable of treating me like disposable garbage. My first reaction was pain, a pain so deep I thought I wouldn't survive it. But then something changed inside me. A cold, controlled anger began to take the place of sadness. An absolute clarity about what I needed to do. I wasn't a burden. I wasn't disposable. I was the woman who had sacrificed her entire life to raise that man, and I wouldn't allow him to treat me like a nuisance. I made an appointment with a lawyer. I took all the documents I had found, and I found out that my legal situation was much stronger than I imagined. As a co-owner of the house, I had rights that Mariana and Gabriel, in their arrogance and haste to get rid of me, hadn't considered. 3 days after the discovery, during dinner, with Gabriel and Mariana sitting at the table talking about a trip they planned to take, I placed all the documents on the table, the house deed with my name on it, the bank statements showing the financial difficulties, the printouts of Mariana's cruel messages. The silence that followed was different from the previous one. This one was charged with shock, with fear, with guilt. Gabriel paled. Mariana tried to maintain her composure, but I saw her hands tremble as she picked up one of the papers. "You called me a burden," I began, my voice calm but firm. "You said that I don't contribute, that I take up space, that I'm a weight in your lives, but the truth is quite different, isn't it?" I looked directly at Gabriel, seeing the boy I knew trying to hide behind the mask of the man he had become. "The money I used to help you with this house wasn't a gift. It wasn't charity. It was the result of 30 years of hard work, of sacrifices that you will never fully understand, Gabriel. And I found out that my name is on this house, that legally, I have as much right to be here as you do." Mariana tried to intervene, that fake smile trying to form on her lips, but I interrupted her with a wave of my hand. "You," I said, turning to her, "orchestrated all this. Manipulated my son, used me to get what you wanted, and then planned to discard me as if I were garbage. I read your messages, I saw your words, and I want you to know that I will not allow you to destroy what remains of the relationship between me and my son." I turned back to Gabriel, feeling the tears threatening to fall, but keeping them under control. "You have become someone I don't recognize. The boy I raised would never treat his mother this way. But maybe I failed at some point. Maybe I gave you everything except the ability to value what really matters." Gabriel finally found his voice, trembling and low. "Mom, I didn't know your name was on the documents. It wasn't my intention." But I interrupted him. "It wasn't your intention what? To deceive me? To use me? Or just it wasn't your intention to get caught?" His silence was answer enough. "I have 2 options here," I continued. "Okay," grabbing another document my lawyer had prepared. "I can demand my legal rights to this house. I can force a sale, receive my share, and let you deal with the consequences. Or," I paused, letting the weight of the words fill the space, "you can return the full amount I invested in this house, adjusted, and I'll leave your lives in the way you so desire." Sarah's expression changed from fear to calculation. I saw her mind working quickly, evaluating the options. "We don't have that money available now," she said, trying to sound reasonable. "It would take months to get it." I nodded. "I know. I've seen your statements. I know you're in debt, that the life of appearances you maintain costs more than you can afford. So here's my final offer. I stay in this house, in my room, without being bothered, without being treated like a burden or nuisance, until you can pay me. And every month that passes without payment, you will pay me rent for the use of the house that is also mine. Or we can resolve this in court, which will be much more expensive and embarrassing for you." Mike seemed to be in shock. Sarah was clearly furious, but trying to control her anger. "You can't do this," she said, her voice sounding sharper. "You're living here for free." I smiled, a sad but determined smile. "No, honey, you're the ones living here partially with my money, and it's time you recognize that." I got up from the table, taking the documents. I consulted a lawyer. "Everything I'm proposing is absolutely legal. The choice is yours. Either you start treating me with the respect I deserve and work to return what is mine, or we face this in court, and I guarantee it won't be pretty for the image of successful executive that you cherish so much, Mike." In the days that followed, the atmosphere in the house was tense, heavy. Mike avoided me even more, unable to face what he had done. Sarah tried a few times to regain control, make sarcastic comments, but I simply ignored her. I was no longer willing to diminish myself to fit into their world. I installed a new lock on my room, started preparing my own meals, created my independent routine inside that house, And for the first time in months, I felt free. Not free to leave, but free from the burden of trying to please people who had decided to devalue me. It was Lily, my 4-year-old granddaughter, who started to change the dynamic. She had always liked me, and with my new posture of independence, I started spending more time with her without asking permission. We played, I told stories, taught her little things that my own grandmother had taught me. And Lily, with the brutal honesty of children, started asking questions. Why doesn't Grandma eat dinner with us anymore? Why doesn't Mommy like it when I play with Grandma? These innocent questions started to bother Mike. They started to make cracks in the perfect facade that he and Sarah were trying to maintain. One night, Mike knocked on my bedroom door. It was late. Sarah had already retired. He entered slowly, looking smaller than he really was, his shoulders bent by the weight of guilt. "Can I talk to you?" he asked, his voice reminiscent of the boy he once was. I nodded, indicating the chair near the window. He sat down, remained silent for long minutes, looking at his own hands. "I messed everything up, didn't I?" he said finally, his voice breaking. "I became exactly the type of person you taught me not to be." I didn't respond immediately. I let the silence do its work, let him feel the weight of his choices. "Mom," he continued, tears starting to run down his face, "I have no excuse for what I did, for what I said. I let Sarah, I let ambition, the desire to belong to a world that was never really mine, turn me into someone cruel, someone ungrateful. Do you remember," I began slowly, "when you were 8 years old and broke the neighbor's window playing ball? You were terrified, thinking I was going to punish you severely, but instead, I took you to her house, made you apologize, and we worked together to pay for the repair. You cut grass, washed cars, did small jobs. It took 3 months, but you paid every cent of that window." Mike nodded, the memory clearly vivid in his mind. "I taught you that day," I continued, "that our actions have consequences, that when we hurt someone, we need to take responsibility and work to repair the damage. You understood that lesson at 8 years old, Mike, but somewhere along the way, you forgot." "I know," he whispered, "and I want to fix it. I looked at my son, seeing in him both the boy I loved and the flawed man he became. "That will take time," I said, "and it won't be easy. But if you really want to rebuild our relationship, you need to start being honest. With me, with yourself, and with Mariana about the type of marriage and family you really want to have." Gabriel nodded, wiping away tears. "I'll start saving the money. I'll work double shifts. I'll cut expenses. I'll do whatever it takes to give you back what's yours. But please, please, don't give up on me completely. I'm still your son. And even though I'm a terrible son, I still love you." The words pierced the defenses I had built, and I felt my own tears start to fall. Because despite everything, despite the pain, the betrayal, the deep disappointment, he was still my son. The bond between mother and son doesn't break easily, even when it is severely tested. "I haven't given up on you," I said softly, "but I'm also not going to erase myself anymore to make your life easier. You need to learn to see me as a complete person, with dignity, rights, and feelings, not just as the mother who will always be there to clean up your messes and support your decisions, right or wrong." The following months were of slow but constant transformation. Gabriel started to change, genuinely change. He started questioning Mariana when she made derogatory comments about me. He started including me in conversations, asking for my opinion, treating me with the respect I deserved. Mariana resisted for a while, but eventually realized that her control was diminishing. She had 2 options: either she changed too, or she would lose the family she so desperately wanted to project to the world. Slowly, very slowly, she began to lower her guard. We didn't become friends, maybe we never would, but we established a respectful coexistence, and the money started to be returned. Gabriel took on extra jobs. They sold Mariana's luxurious car for a more modest one. They cut extravagant trips and superfluous expenses. Each month, he deposited an amount into my account, accompanied by a handwritten note reaffirming his commitment to doing the right thing. It took almost 2 years, but finally, on a rainy winter afternoon, Gabriel handed me the last payment. We were alone in the living room. Yulia was at school, and Mariana at work. He placed the envelope in my hands and said, "It's all here, every penny, with correction and interest. You're free to go, if you want, and I wouldn't have the right to blame you." I held the envelope, feeling its weight, not only physical but symbolic. It represented my freedom, my regained independence, my restored dignity, but it also represented something deeper. It represented a journey of learning, both mine and Gabriel's. "I want to have my own place again," I said finally, "a space that is genuinely mine, where I can live my life on my own terms. But that doesn't mean I'm abandoning you, or that I'm closing the door to our relationship. It means I'm choosing myself, my autonomy, without that needing to invalidate my love for you and Julia." Gabriel nodded, tears running down his face. "You deserve this. You always deserved it. And I'm so sorry, more than words can express, for having forgotten that, for having treated you the way I did." I hugged my son, feeling the boy and the man simultaneously in my arms. "We all make mistakes," I said softly. What matters is what we do after, how we grow, how we become better. In the following months, I found a lovely apartment, not too far from them, but mine, completely mine. I decorated it my way, with my things, my memories, my personality stamped in every corner, and for the first time in years, I felt complete. My relationship with Gabriel rebuilt slowly, on more solid foundations this time, foundations of mutual respect, of healthy boundaries, of recognition that love doesn't mean total self-sacrifice. Yulia visits me regularly, sleeps at my house on weekends, and I am creating with her the grandmother and granddaughter relationship that I always dreamed of having. Mariana and I will never become intimate, but we have learned to respect each other, to recognize our roles in Gabriel's life without competing for his affection. And I, at 65 years old now, have learned the most valuable lesson of all, that teaching our children to fly doesn't mean becoming small enough so they don't see us. It means creating strong wings in ourselves too, so that we can fly alongside them, as equals, as complete people, worthy of respect and love. When I look back at that terrible night when Gabriel called me a burden, I see now that it was a gift disguised as a tragedy. It was the push I needed to stop defining myself only through my role as a mother, to see myself as Helena, a woman of value, strength, and her own dignity. To teach to... Here's the exact translation of the provided block. My son, through actions instead of words, that true love demands respect, that family is built on foundations of honesty and mutual appreciation, not on sacrifices that nullify us. Today, when we gather for family dinners, I arrive as a guest, not as a shadow. I participate in conversations as an equal, not as a silent spectator. And when Gabriel looks at me, I see in him no longer the arrogant man who hurt me so deeply, but my son, flawed as we all are, but trying, always trying to be better. The journey taught me that being a mother doesn't mean disappearing. It means being present, but not invisible. It means giving, but not emptying yourself completely. It means loving unconditionally, but not accepting disrespect in the name of that love. And more importantly, it taught me that it's never too late to reinvent ourselves, to demand the treatment we deserve, to choose ourselves without guilt, because in the end, we can only truly love and care for others when we first learn to do the same for ourselves. And that is the lesson I want to leave not only for Gabriel, but for all the women who got lost along the way of caring for others. You are not a weight, you are not a burden, you are not disposable, you are complete, valuable, and deserving of all the respect and love you give so generously to others. Never ever forget that. Now here's a culturally adapted version for an English-speaking audience. Through actions, not just words, my son has learned that true love demands respect, and that family is built on a foundation of honesty and mutual appreciation, not sacrifices that erase who we are. Now when we get together for family dinners, I come as a guest, not a ghost. I join in the conversations as an equal, not just a silent observer. And when Michael looks at me, I no longer see the arrogant man who hurt me so deeply, but my son, flawed like everyone, but trying, always trying to be better. This journey has taught me that being a mom doesn't mean vanishing. It means being present, but not invisible. It means giving, but not giving everything away. It means loving unconditionally, but not accepting disrespect in the name of love. And most importantly, it taught me that it's never too late to reinvent ourselves, to demand the respect we deserve, to put ourselves first without feeling guilty. Because in the end, we can only truly love and care for others when we first learn to do the same for ourselves. And that's the lesson I want to pass on, not just to Michael, but to every woman who's lost herself while caring for others. You are not a burden, you are not a weight, you are not disposable, you are complete, you are valuable, and you deserve all the love and respect you so generously give to others. Never ever forget that.